Hi, I'm Sean Fit for Life, and I'm the creator of the Cold Feet podcast. It's a privilege to have you spending your important time watching our podcast today. I want to thank you for coming along and hope you learned something. Now, you must be asking, why an ice bath? Why cold exposure? For three main reasons. Number one, accelerated fat loss. An ice bath can tap into your brown fat tissues and through that help you keep off fat as part of a greater healthy lifestyle in the long term. Number two, mental fortitude, and the reason why I interview everyone here on the show in the ice bath. If you're someone who can sit in the winter for 10 or more minutes in the ice bath, you're an amazing person and I want you on my show. Number three, increased recovery time. While it may not be beneficial to ice immediately after an injury, ice bathing can help as part of a greater recovery regimen. So grab a hot cocoa, stay warm, and enjoy the episode. Possible. Get comfy. We're both wearing our sexy Sean Fit for Life shirts. Cool. Comfy?
Yeah, I'm good.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Cold Feet podcast. Today I have on the show good friends, former clients, fellow former lone soldier, Ahuva, who recently dropped out of architecture school.
Yeah.
And the podcast of the concept of today's episode is going to be why school may or may not be for you, why higher education may suck, why the general,
Structure.
The general structure of schooling may, be very, very flawed and perhaps some other alternative options. So without further ado, Ahuva, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, so I'm Ahuva Spiegel. You can find me everywhere social, basically, either at Ahuva Spigs or Ahuva Spiegel on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and all of that. I, post-military, pretty much went straight into education because I felt really big pressure as an American to get started on school. Most of my friends were almost done their degrees back in America, and I, of course, had done the military. And I started studying architecture at Bezalel Academy in Jerusalem. It's an extremely intensive program with, full-time studying, 24 hours a day, mostly on the computer once you hit your second year. It requires a lot of money, time, effort, patience, all of those things. And while there are definitely aspects of it that were a great experience, ultimately it wasn't for me, and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about.
Wow, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think Ahuva's lucky because it's like the hottest podcast to be filmed still yet, so we're going to have to rename the podcast to the Hot Feet podcast instead.
It's still cold in
still
here.
Pretty, we did already know plenty of
there
ice.
There is ice in here.
So, first off, and being a movement practitioner, before we put in whether you should be investing your time and money and mental health into school should not be sitting for 8 hours. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that.
Let's not even talk about college. Let's talk about middle school. Let's talk about what's youth school called, elementary school. You're taking kids who have tons of energy, perfect mobility. They didn't ruin their hips yet by sitting, and all they want to do is move and have fun and play. And you sit them for 8 hours and give them half an hour recess. I think it should be let them move around for 8 hours, and I don't mean move around just playing sports. I mean move around and learn things. Hey, let's learn math. Let's go build a house. Let's go plant things. Let's go learn how to forage mushrooms in the wild. Let's, more other outworldy ways. If we want to learn about Rome, let's go hike and visit the Colosseum. Or it doesn't have to be Rome. We have a Colosseum here in Israel as well. And if they need to sit, so then do half an hour where they learn how to do their addition and spelling and reading.
I grew up in a system where I got to move around for 15 minutes of the day, and I was in an ultra-Orthodox school, so you couldn't even do real sports. That was considered not ladylike, but and not sanua.
Not just in girls' schools, by the way.
But there actually are some Israeli schools that really are doing that, and it's amazing. I was in the army with a girl who told me that her school was attached to a farm, and the kids maintain the farm. They grew vegetables as part of being in school.
Wow.
And they all knew how to grow fruits and vegetables because of their education, which is insane.
Life skills.
It's life skills, that's the kind of person who want to get stuck on an island.
Yeah. When the corona kills us all, so we're going to need to know how to plant our vegetables and fruits, and if we don't, then we're pretty screwed. It's not going to matter if we know the dividend of the algebra number of pi times square.
And she was one of the most smart people, the most street smart and just in general smart people that I've ever met. Really.
I think the flaw with that is that that's not the norm. Like, I have an autistic brother who's in a special school where they take care of the horses and they horseback ride, but it's a special needs school. Your friend is not a special needs individual, but that's like a 1 in 1,000 case. The average schooling is sit, learn, sit, learn, sit, learn, sit, learn, play a little on a good day. Here in Israel, where religion is very involved in schooling, as well as in America and many Jewish communities, unfortunately, even in men's schools, sport is frowned upon. So like you go to a yeshiva, which is like a religious institution. I'm not saying all yeshivas, I'm saying like the ultra-Orthodox institutions, like Ahuva was saying. And it's like, nope, you can't play sports because that's like not befitting of a Jew, or if it's a woman, it's not modest.
Yeah.
That is the biggest bullcrap I've ever seen. And I'm going to say this on camera. Would you rather your kid go watch porn and do drugs, or would you rather that he go play soccer and basketball? Extreme. No, but like,
no, but you have
I'm talking about dudes. Like, I've went to rabbis and called them out. I've never been afraid to say what's on my mind. Like, your kid, you're not letting your kid play soccer. He needs an outlet. What is he going to do? Sit in his ass all day? Nope, sorry, stop living in a la la land. Your kid needs an outlet. So let them play sports, let them move as much as they could, and you can incorporate the teaching and education.
My boyfriend, Yehuda, he also grew up in an even more Orthodox community than I did. And he was in school from 8 o'clock in the morning to like 6, 7 o'clock at night at the age of 13. And they didn't play sports.
Right.
That's changed, by the way. Like now, even the really Orthodox schools, some of them like actually allow you to play sports. He was not even able to play sports, and he was a wild kid. Like, and he hated it. And his dad sent him to a Chabad yeshiva in Iowa. And it was like in the middle of nowhere, so they weren't as worried about like the kids doing inappropriate stuff because it was like there's nothing but cornfields. But as a kid, like that was
drastic. Step, but you have a phone in your pocket. Oh yeah. Oh, let's forget about that.
Oh wow. Yeah. It's a whole nother.
Good point.
But really, like the fact that he was just able to walk around and get out his energy, like it changed him completely.
Yeah, nature is definitely. I also went to like many alternative schools, and I think the thing that really helped me was like the nature aspect. You know, get out, explore, meditate.
For sure.
That's just like the base level of like all schools. But now can we dive in a bit to like higher education? So can you share a little bit about your? I wouldn't call it disaster. I would actually call it success. Your college success.
Yeah. Well, architecture is definitely very different than like a typical school because it isn't just frontal learning where you're sitting and you're listening to a teacher talk all day, because it's design school. So even though, yes, you're like forced to sit a lot of the time to listen to lectures and stuff, especially in your first year, it's actually all like building models and drawing really difficult drawings with rulers and stuff, and it's very intensive, but you are using your hands, and that's kind of the part that I fell in love with.
Like creative part?
Yeah, the creative aspect. I love like building models and doing all that stuff, but the competition was insane because these people are so talented. Like, it was the first time I was ever in an environment where I felt less talented and dumber than everyone around me.
Wow.
Which is like not trying to sound like, you know, big shotty, but like very often I find myself in a situation where I'm not stimulated because I feel like the people around me are not the most intelligent. And then suddenly I'm in an environment where I feel like I'm literally the dumbest person there.
That kind of leads me to a question that's asked commonly, which is, which would you rather be? You know, the head of the fox or the tail of the lion? Now, because I work with tactical a lot, you know, military, I see this a lot, and they say like, yeah, I can just go to like Givati and I could be a regular combat soldier and I'll be like a commander, an officer, or I can go into one of these elite units and my Hebrew's not so good. They're kind of like, which would you rather be?
So it's really a hard answer because on the one hand, like, it forces you to work a lot harder and it motivates you, but also you have this feeling of like, I'm never good enough, which can be really depressing and can really just like, it can also stunt your creativity.
Wait,
because
that's if you're like the tail of the lion scenario?
Like
you were in school?
Yeah. Like, but at the same time, if you're the head and you're the best there is, where's your motivation to get better?
I hear that. So,
I definitely appreciated being in an environment like that, but it really did take a toll on me, I think. Because no matter how many hours I stayed awake and no matter how much I, worked on projects, I always felt like I was behind.
Wow,
it was crazy. And also, architecture in general as a degree, it's very like, it's based off of critique, right? So you come in with the work that you worked on for the last 3 days straight without sleeping, and your professor goes ahead and tells you everything that needs to be improved or that's wrong with your project.
Wow.
Sometimes they hate it, sometimes they think it's good, but it needs like another 4 days of work, but it's never done. That's like the thing that they would always say in architecture school, like, architecture is never finished, and that's the beauty of a project. It can always be improved, but at the same time, It's really hard when you know that there's never an end to something.
Is it like a little bit of like a perfectionist mentality?
Yeah, architects are perfectionists for sure.
Wow.
But also, it makes sense that architects are
I
perfectionists.
mean, they have to be.
Like,
I hope the building doesn't fall down on me.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, first of all, there's a few concepts there. First of all, if you're the strongest one in the gym, it's time to find a new gym, right? That's what I say, being a gym rat. And also, specifically with architecture or stuff in life, you always want to improve. Like if I have this online program, right, the speed and agility, etc. I'm always upgrading. I'm always adding more programming, making it nicer, making the template nicer, adding more drills. You always want to get better. But I know that it's never going to be perfect because there's no such thing as perfection. So if my mentors and teachers and parents or colleagues, loved ones are driving me to perfection, it might drive me crazy a bit.
Yeah, and that kind of is a bit of what led me to eventually leave. I definitely think learning going online, it was like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Oh, the whole Zoom Corona crisis?
Zoom thing, because basically you're taking a degree. From the second year, everything kind of becomes computerized. So you stop drawing with your hands, you start working on a program called AutoCAD where you make lines. It's not necessarily less creative, but you need to learn all this new software and how to create to put your creativity into a software rather than just what you're used to. And then you go from 3D modeling to modeling physically on the computer, which is extremely difficult, but it's very cool once you can actually do it. But basically, you take the few things about the degree that are still physical, and you move them to the computer as well. So then the only thing that's left that's not on the computer is the classes themselves. And then Zoom came along, and everything was on the computer. So from 8 o'clock in the morning when I woke up, to 12 to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning when I went to sleep, I was in front of a computer, either in a class or on a program. And that took a huge toll on my mental health. Because, I mean, no one's meant to sit in front of a computer for that many hours a day.
No one's meant to sit. Computer is even worse.
And while I maintained good grades and I was doing really well, inside, I was just dead inside. And I also started to realize that if that's what the field was, because at the end of the day, that's what you do in the field, you sit in front of a computer.
Wow.
And the chances of you really getting to use your creativity are only if you open your own firm, which takes 50 years. So, and as someone who is into architecture but was never in love with it to the point where I could see myself opening my own firm, I said, wait, so that means I'm never going to open my own firm, which means I'm going to work for someone else, sit in an office, and draw lines on a computer for 10 hours a day.
Can I reflect on that? This is a big line I have, being an entrepreneur, being super passionate about opening your business, finding your passions, and, making money out of it. If you're not working, that's probably a lizard or something.
Yeah, I think
this is also known as Sean Zoo for Life. We have, dog and rabbit cameos, and every now and then we have lizards, salamanders, birds, humans, monkeys, without the monkeys. So, if you're not working actively to fulfill your own dream, you're usually working towards fulfilling someone else's dream. Now that's a deep statement, and as much as the entrepreneur in me says, hell yeah, work for your dream, which I do, not everyone's cut out for that. Right.
And I definitely think that you can, help to fulfill someone else's dream, and that could be
and
extremely
still feel fulfilling because you could be in their company and growing with them.
Exactly, but you have to enjoy what you're doing.
Hell yeah.
And what I came to understand is that all the aspects of architecture that I did enjoy were not actually going to exist if I was working for somebody else. And not only that, but the pay for working under someone else in architecture is actually surprisingly low.
Like most bachelor's degrees jobs.
After 5 years of higher education, where the first 2.5 are full-time to the point where you cannot physically do anything else. By the way, those 5 years aren't all you need. After those 5 years, you need to intern for a minimum of 3 years. After those 3 years, you can only then take a test. Once you pass that test, you're officially an architect. Before that, you can't even work on your own even if you wanted to. And those 3 years, by the way, you get paid minimum wage. Even though you just spent 5 years in school and blew all your money on supplies and education and just living without the ability to work as well, it's just crazy to me. And when I realized that the pay wasn't even that good, I'm like, I might as well do something that I love. And, go, if I decide to study again, fine, but I want to do it in a place that, I can also balance the rest of my life, which I couldn't do there.
My main question to you is that you're describing a dilemma that I would say, without testing statistics, 70% of college or universities goers go through. At some point in their career, they're asking themselves, why am I doing this again? Or I don't enjoy this, or why am I staying up late to study for exams for something that I may or may want to do, or I don't even know why I'm doing this degree in the first place. What made you begin the self-questioning process? Because I think that for our viewers out there, we really want to help them. And if you could ask yourself these questions, how did you get to that process?
So I actually spoke about this on my video
Hell
on
yeah.
YouTube.
Well, we'll get into
For why I left architecture, but it kind of boils down to this. When you're in school, there's two different factors that motivate you to keep you there. One is that you're genuinely enjoying your time. So even if maybe at the end of the day you won't end up in the field, you're enjoying your studies, you like the people you study with, and you know education is good for you. So that's one reason. And then the other reason is you really see yourself going into that field in the future. So even if maybe, the path to get there, the system that you have to go through to get to that place where you want to be, if you really want to be an architect more than anything else in the world, and that was your dream, even if school is making you miserable, you will push through. So
kind of like an obstacle you have to pass to get there.
Yeah, so you have, I see myself in the field, or I'm enjoying myself. If you have both, that's like, wow, like you have won the system. If you have even one, that's enough to keep you going. But the minute both of those are no longer a factor, you stop seeing yourself wanting that career and school's making you miserable, that's when you start to question everything. And that's kind of what happened to me. Like in the beginning, I genuinely went in with both. And then with time, as I began to understand what the field truly was, I, started to lose my passion. But the truth is that, no amount of research prior to going to school could have taught me that lesson.
Wow. Okay, so when you go to school or university, whether you're applying to it or you're in your first semester or second year, I think there's a few questions you have to ask yourself. Question number one, am I super passionate about this? Do I want to make a career out of this? Is this something that I'm just so super stoked about that I'm going to put through exams, sitting for 8 hours for 3 to 4 to 5 to 7 years? Like, is this something that I'm going to make a career out of? The second thing you want to ask yourself is there other alternative ways to learn the same thing? So if you're like a doctor, and if you want to operate on someone's stomach after, God forbid, there's a fender in his stomach from a car accident, I want you to spend 7 years in school. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I did an online course, and I think I'm doing this. Like, that's the medical route these days. You do have to study. If you're an Eastern doctor, you have to usually go to China for a couple of years. You have to be good at your craft. But if you're like, let's say, a trainer or a content producer, food blogger, yeah, like you could learn everything online. You could learn it from a book, and no one's gonna question your methods. Like, I don't have a degree, but I am one of the most, without tooting my own horn, sorry, I'm not one of the most, that's not nice. I am a very educated human being when it comes to athletic development. And that's because I would say a good half of my days are spent furthering my education, whether it's online courses, whether it's reading, whether it's training people, whether it's working with different types of athletes to see what works better. I'm self-educated mostly. Obviously, I've done a lot of courses, but I went the route of school is not the best way to learn what I need to learn, because I don't want to learn about the history of the Jewish people right now, or I don't want to learn about the advanced sociology of the human people and how we all used to be monkeys. I want to learn how to make people better at sports, so that's what I'm going to do. So, repeating the question again, is there an alternative way to learn what you, is there an alternative way to learn this method in a less like closed-minded university environment? And the third question is, are you going to be able to make money out of this career? Are you going to be able to, monetize it and, get a good job that you can pay your bills with? And I think the fourth question you have to ask yourself is, are you capable of sitting 3 to 7 years in school in this, very box-minded environment? I know I'm not.
The flip side to that, you have to also ask yourself, are you capable of motivating yourself enough to self-teach? Because that's not for everyone either.
Correct.
And you have to know if you're the kind of person that needs to go to school because you need someone forcing it down your throat, or do you have enough passion inside of you to make that happen on your own?
That's powerful. I think that just from seeing all the Facebook CEO, all these guys that dropped out of Harvard, perhaps it's like a type of person who drops out of college who also can become that rich entrepreneur, where a lot of the generic run by the mill college people, some that make it, some that don't.
Right. I can say for me, I needed to go to architecture school to realize how much I can do on my own. Because in architecture school, what happens is that they don't teach you every program. They teach you one program that they must teach you according to architecture school protocol.
That's part of the flow.
But they expect you to teach yourself all the other programs that you need to know. And basically what I realized when in architecture school, I have a deadline, and I would suddenly learn how to use a program on my own in 3 days, because I had no choice, just off of YouTube videos of asking people to help me and of playing around. And I was like, if I can do this on my own, why do I need to be in school for this? And then when I left school, the first thing I did was learn how to edit videos.
Amazing.
And I'm still learning. I still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
But I literally, just from YouTube videos, learned how to edit my first few YouTube videos. I figured out which camera to buy based off of reviews. And it's a constant, you know, you're constantly learning. And that's, by the way, another thing. Like, you have to constantly be on top of the information, because we will live in a world where, like, new technology and new information comes out every 30 seconds pretty much, but if
Probably
you're
every
passionate
second, yeah.
about it, there's nothing better. Like, there's no better feeling.
The sky's the limit.
Yeah.
A big part of entrepreneurship is that you don't need to wait for your CEO to say, hey, Huba, you did a good job, I'm going to give you a 50-cent raise. You're going to be like, yay! Actually, the sky's the limit. If I want to raise, so I get another client, or I start another online program, or I expand my facility, like, it's all in me. So once again, as Huba said, really important point, because I didn't really think of that, you have to be a passionate, fiery person to create this content from nothing. And if you're not that, maybe school is the way to go.
Right.
The other thing is, though, in addition to the 4 or 5 things I like asked myself before going to school, is there anything that you would add? Like, questions you must ask yourself before you go to school, or while you're in school?
I really think that, like, sometimes you actually really just need to go to school to know that you don't want to be there.
Yeah,
like I said before, I definitely think that the main thing you have to do if you are considering going to school is research, and not just talking to, like, one person.
What kind of research?
No, I'll explain.
Yeah.
Not just talking to one person who's in the program right now. You need to find people who are studying the degree or whatever it is in the place where you are thinking to go, and ask them if they feel stimulated, if they're enjoying their classes, do they like the environment, do they regret their decision. Then you want to move forward and find someone who graduated from that program. What are they doing now? Are they enjoying what they're doing? How did they pivot from their college education to the workforce? Because we all know that college just kind of gives you a really baseline, and then all the real learning happens once you're in the workforce.
Yeah.
As we all know, but it does help you get your foot in the door.
Right.
Coming with that degree, that's why people get degrees, right? Because it helps you get your foot in the door. It says on your resume, degree, people have to take you a little bit more seriously, and legally you have to get paid more, by the way.
Israel's very good about that. Sarcasm intended, no.
But it's actually crazy, because certain places purposely will look for someone without a degree because they can't afford to pay them that extra money. So it's like a double-edged sword kind of situation.
Wow.
But you need to ask people who have graduated from that degree and see how they were able to move forward. Because if people have a degree and ended up in different fields, and there's no one who actually used that degree for anything, chances are you're trying to study something that you're not actually going to use. You know, that's not practical in any way. And like, also, what was it? I forgot. But yeah, it's really important. And also, just in general, like, think about the cost of college.
Is it not the financial cost, or yes, the financial cost?
The mental cost.
The mental cost, yeah.
And the financial cost. If you can afford to, like, live by your parents and not have extra debt because you're also paying rent while you're in college, it's less glamorous. I don't care. Like, college is expensive enough without rent.
Yeah.
And I have friends who choose to pay rent while they're in college, and I look at them, I'm like, you have parents that live in the same city as you? Are you insane?
I hear that. I'm pretty, like, anti-family, like, but I would never live with my parents, but I hear that. I hear that point.
Because also, basically, like me, right? I, thank God, I dropped out, and I had a scholarship. So the only real financial loss was the rent and food that I was paying for while not having an income. But my actual tuition, I didn't lose anything because I had it covered by a scholarship. First I just had the Olim Chadashim scholarship.
Yeah, so like here in Israel, so any new immigrants get their scholarship, get their degree paid.
If it's a public school, as in it's a cheaper school.
Not a private institution.
Not a private institution.
No, none of that what's it called?
IDC shit.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's like, you have to think about, like, if theoretically I do decide to drop out, or I don't end up using my degree, how much money am I going to be in debt? Like, you know,
perhaps
in Israel also.
Perhaps it's more of a problem in America. Like in Israel, where like a year degree is like 11,000 shekel, which is like $2,000 to $4,000. In America, you're going to student debt for 10 years for what? So you can be a assistant to some secretary? Like, sorry, I'm not trying to sound demoralizing, demeaning, but like, you're going into debt for 10 years for what? For what greater purpose are you
But that's
doing
what I'm
that?
saying. Even if you're Israeli, right?
Yeah.
And even if you go to Uppsala, like I did, okay? So tuition is 11,000. If you don't have a scholarship, that's 11,500 for 5 years. If you don't have any financial help from your parents and you're paying rent, that's another 2,000 shekels a month. Maybe another little bit, a couple hundred shekels on utilities.
Right.
Then we have the
And you
supplies.
can't work. And you can't work.
And you can't work.
Right.
Then you have the supplies you have to pay to you know, make the stuff. So it's paying for program subscriptions and paying for model supplies and paper and printing and all that. In the first few years, it's thousands of shekels a year. And then you also have like living expenses, transportation, food. If you ever want to do anything fun ever.
If you want to go out for a weekend with the boys or girls and have a drink or something, wow.
So it's not just about, you know, tuition. You have to think about all of that as well.
Well, you said so much. I'm like still trying to absorb everything. First off, like reflecting back, find a person who did it already, who did it successfully, whether in their first year, second, third year, or starting out, freaking CEO who did the same degree as you, and ask them. It's kind of like a shortcut. It's like reading a book. If you read a book, you're going into the mind of the person who did it successfully. Same thing with this dude. If he graduated the architecture school and he freaking built the biggest building in Tel Aviv, hey dude, I know it's like weird because I'm like only 20 years old, I'm just starting school, but can I speak with you for 5 minutes? You'd be surprised how many kind people there are in the world, and maybe he can, you know, give you his wisdom, what he did wrong, what he did right. We just delved into financial costs. Like, I know students who've worked throughout the degree, but guess what? I believe in like the one thing principle. Either you're getting straight A's and you're the best student, or you're like barely paying rent and trying to cover your rent. So if you want to take the already high demands of school, perfectionism, and be a grade A student, you shouldn't be working. It's like being in the army and working at the same time. You can't apply yourself to work, so you're going to sleep 2 hours nights, so you can work 8-hour night shift for your 300 shekel, $100, so you can live through school, but then you're not getting sleep, so you have no time to study, and you're taking 5 years of your life and you're putting it in the garbage, down the toilet.
By the way, like anyone who I studied with that also worked was failed. Like barely passing school.
I'm not surprised.
The people who were successful had lots of financial help from their parents and only focused on school.
I just saw a really powerful post on Instagram. Luke Keegley, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Luke Keegley or something. He was the Panthers linebacker, American football. He was probably one of the best linebackers of all time, and I just saw his post in the NFL. He's like, my entire career of college, I didn't have cable, so I wouldn't waste time watching TV. And that sounds extreme, but it's not. He's like, I want to be the best football player of all time. I don't have time for TV. It's not that TV is inherently a negative thing. It's that if I'm investing more time watching TV and watching cable, I'm taking that time away from applying myself to my sport. So same thing as college. If I'm spending that 2-3 times a week doing waiter shifts, which is like very common here, right? Waiter, waitress, I'm taking away from my ability to study. So that's a big, big problem. And as Ahuba said, if you could live with your parents to school, go for it. If you can get the scholarship, go for it. I'm going to share, if it's okay with you, my personal story about school. I did try it. I don't like, give up. So the last time I sat in a formal educated class of a relatively normal Jewish institution was 6th grade. Which is why I'm so smart today.
Everyone's exiting out of the podcast like as we speak.
Which is why my math skills are not so up to par, because if you think about it, all the like fancy stuff after like multiplication are taught after 6th grade. So like besides the weights in the gym, like don't give me math. It's not my forte. Despite that, I didn't drop out of school. My family made Aliyah to Israel. They moved to Israel with me, and for most immigrants who move to Israel, we get pretty effed up, you know. We get pretty screwed up. My older sister is like off the grid. I have an autistic brother. I like was off the grid for a bit. And at the age of 15, I realized like I do want to have something substantial for myself, because I'm not a dropout. I'm not a failure. Just my parents decided to move with me to a new country at the age of 12. Parents, I still love you. Not really. Okay, I still love you. And I got my GED at the age of 15. I went to one of these unique programs, like you mentioned before with your friend. Are you still chilling? Cold game with cold?
Yeah. No, I'm good. I'm just getting antsy.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I'm also like I can't. Okay. At the age of 15, I was in this really cool program called ACE, Adventure Challenge Education. We went hiking every week. If we did any studying, it was in the outdoors. We learned how to craft woodwork. We learned martial arts. A lot of us went to elite units after. We got our GEDs there. It was like the perfect institution for me. Less sitting, more doing. At the age of 15, I had a GED. So if you think about it, the average kid in America gets their high school diploma at 18. I got it at 15. So I left Israel. I went back to America, and I was like, I'm ready to face the world. So first thing I did, because I was relatively trying to fit into the box, I applied for college. And a 15-year-old walks into the institution. I'm like, yeah, I have a diploma. And they're like, You have a diploma. You must be a high school dropout. So you have to do this test and this test and this test and this test.
Really?
And guess what? My tests weren't up to par because I had a hands-on education. I knew how to fight. I knew how to build wood. I knew how to plant things. I knew I was in good shape. I got my GED purely off studying myself. But I didn't have the, the fancy algebra dividends to the pi square root of my nose. So I didn't get into, it was Touro College in America. It's funny because my grandfather's the dean of Touro now. Maybe you would have hooked me up. But I didn't get in, so I said, okay, cool. So I began exploring a career in special needs. I worked with special needs. I began training because I wanted to go to the Army, and I kind of combined that niche to build who I am today as a trainer. I realized special needs kids need physical activity too, just like regular humans. That's where I got the idea of working with special needs, and it eventually turned into athletes. Long story short, at the age of 18, I got drafted. I went to the Army, got into elite unit, spent 3 years of my life, we didn't really touch on that most Israelis, like where an American kid would usually be, or Canadian or European, would be spending like the graduating high school, like thinking of career options, we're like in war.
Yeah.
Literally.
Or just
guarding,
being abused by
the
your
Army.
commander.
Or like just, it ties into the one thing principle. We are spending time doing something that's important, but not helping us, future our career.
Yeah.
So you're in the Army, you have 3 years being in the Army, you don't have time to think about career options, you don't have time to think about your future. And like maybe the month before you finish the Army, they'll be like, oh yeah, by the way, here's the options to explore your career. And I'm like, bro, in the 2 hours of sleep I got the past 3 years, when did I have a chance to think about my career, right? I got into the Army, in my second year of service I got injured, and that's kind of when I joined the Combat Fitness Instructor Corps of my unit. Thank God, thank Allah, thank whatever God you believe in, Jesus, that I kind of pushed me towards the path of training, because I finished the Army. The day I finished the Army, I opened my business. I'm like, this is what I want to do. I know what I'm doing, and I'm 1 in 5 million. Got myself a training certificate just to, that's the water filter, to filter the water, because I do want people sitting, I don't want random chemicals in it.
Right, that's
I change it every week. I add an earthing cord, I hook up the ice bath for super duper benefits. Anyways, I got this, training certification to give myself that backup. Worst case, my concept fails, I can always, work at a gym or something. I applied to Wingate Institute, which is one of the most renowned institutes in Israel, specifically for the sports and physical training field. And it's also renowned around the world because they did sorts of studies that were peer-reviewed and famous bullshit stuff. And I went there, I went there and applied, and they said, you only have a GED, you're a dropout. I'm like, I'm seeing a pattern here. Do you even know one? And bro, no, but legit.
It's interesting because it's a personal training institution. It's
not a personal training institution, it's a physical education institution. Personal training is like a course, whereas here you're getting a degree in physical education.
Still, though, it is definitely a more, physical,
Yes.
I wouldn't say alternative, but it's, not your typical route. You think they'd be a little bit more
open-minded, but unfortunately they weren't. And they're like, you need a psychometry. And I'm like, bro, I don't have an education. This is not going to work. But I wasn't willing to give up, so I got my SAT. I sat for my, I did an SAT course, which was in Hebrew, in math and Hebrew.
Good for
Didn't
you.
understand the word. So I said, okay, this is not working. I sat with the tutor, didn't work. My dad, who's a genius, he sat with me trying to teach me math. We sat twice a week, every week. Didn't work. So I came to my SAT test, no idea what to do, English and math. I guessed every question. Literally, I didn't even look. I just A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, E, and I passed.
Nice.
Right. So
yeah,
God.
SAT's multiple choice.
Yeah. So God had my back, and then the ones that are open tests are I'm 74 divided by 5, but it's made up shit. I magically got good grades. I think that Wingate doesn't know how to read SATs properly. So they're like, oh, we had an SAT. So I got accepted by a miracle. I got a scholarship too from Impact, and I went there. And the first day, the first class was the history of the Jewish people. The second, which is awesome, but not something I want to waste my time in at the moment. I want to read about it, but I don't want to travel 3 hours by bus in the first month of my marriage, so I can learn about the history of the Jewish people, followed by sociology, followed by psychology, followed by physics. I beat that out myself. How am I progressing my career here? And then the second day I went to school, I went around to them and I said, Ahuva, what do you want to do with your life? And they're like, I want to be a gym trainer. I'm like, okay. What are you going to do with your life? I'm not really sure. I just chose this degree. What are you going to do with your life? I'm not really sure. Fourth person, what do you want to do? Maybe I want to be a teacher. How much teachers make? We make $7 an hour at our 10th year of school. And I'm like, so, I'm sorry, I'm being obnoxious a little bit. But this is the truth. And I was like, hold up, Sean. You have a gym. You opened a gym already. You're training people. You have clients. I was traveling 6 hours of commuting. I didn't have a car yet.
Wow.
I just got married, so I was waking up 5 a.m. to get to school at 8:30, which I was late anyways because of traffic. My wife, Sarah, who I just married, I didn't get to spend any time with her. I came home exhausted. I didn't have time to train clients. And after one semester, I'm like, this is not for me. Like, this is crazy. And then Impact called me. He's like, hey, we heard you're not coming to school. You're revoking your scholarship. So I said, you're not revoking anything. I want to interview with the CEO of Impact. And they're like, okay. So I went up there and she's like, so Sean, what are we going to do with you? Like, you're dropping out of college. You're a failure. I wish I recorded this because who are you, desk worker? You're a CEO of Impact. Yay. Do you know what? I'm clearly still resentful about this.
Yeah,
wow.
very
A lot of
much.
psychology stuff going on. Okay, let me calm down. Hey, plan. I didn't say this there, but she's a CEO of a nonprofit. Yay. Why are you judging me that maybe college is not for me? Why are you so quick to assume that I'm a dropout? So I said to her, hey, I respect you a lot. Why don't you help me come to a decision? Because I'm really struggling here with the system. So she sent me to their top psychologist of Impact in Renana. So I took like a 3-hour bus ride to get there to sit with her. She spends 1 minute with me and she's like, drop out of school. You have this fiery passion that belongs in spending time with your wife, growing your business. And hey, you know what? Here I am. I left school in 2017-18. I have a business. I work with the national sports teams of Israel. I have a podcast. I'm writing a book. I have an online program. Like, if I spent I'd still be in school now. If I spent the last 4 years of my life in school, shitty relationship with my wife, wouldn't have developed friendships, wouldn't have developed clients, wouldn't have time for this 16th episode of the Cold Feet podcast. I would have just been mentally breaking myself and maybe, gone back to my eating disorder, which I had. Like, I'm not trying to say drop out of school. What I am saying is you better be questioning school if you want to, succeed. That's my personal story. Sorry if I got a little bit passionate.
I think it's more than questioning schools. You have to question yourself. You have to look yourself in the mirror and say, what do I really want?
Yeah.
And again, like, you can't always know what you want, but you have to be honest with yourself. If that's also the answer, if that's that you don't know, and not just go somewhere because someone tells you.
Maybe, questioning yourself, yes, but also question the system. Like, I think school, like most universities and colleges, are like a box. And they say, these type of people who are capable of, sitting 8 hours in school and know what they want to an extent can fit in the box. But what about the 30% who can't fit in the box? Where are their alternatives? I know that there's cool high school programs where they grow plants and raise horses, but the standard university is pretty generic. You know what I mean? I don't know of a university that says, let's learn how to plant things and let's learn how to file taxes. That's about it. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Can you tell us a little bit more about your successful endeavors after your leaving school for the greater good?
So it's still pretty recent. Like, I only left school in December.
Mm-hmm. Fresh wounds.
Yeah, fresh wounds. But basically, as I said, the thing that I took out of school was that I could really do anything I wanted. But
yeah, buddy!
I can teach myself. So I, have been addicted to YouTube my entire life, but especially when
12 steps?
When I was,
12 steps.
I don't want to do the 12 steps. I like my addiction. And by the way, fun fact, some people don't know, but you can actually speed up YouTube videos and digest so much more information because you listen to it. Yeah.
So, sorry, quick topic. Sarah learned how to crochet and do macrame from YouTube, and she follows along and she finds a stick that Charlie brings her in the park, and she makes these beautiful designs out of it and hangs it up in her house or her salon, and she slows it down to follow along, and it's
amazing,
like, take that, and I'm like, sir, I think your video's broken. Okay. Sure.
Anyway, so I would watch YouTube, and so much of what I learned was from YouTube when I was learning in school, cooking, just needing to know any computer programs. There was a YouTube video for everything, and that kind of is what started the YouTube addiction. But I realized, all these things that these YouTubers are teaching and showing and doing, and the entertainment, like, I can do that too. Like, why don't I just do that too? And my boyfriend had been telling me for the longest time, Ahuva, you need to open a YouTube channel. But like, the idea of getting in front of a camera was so intimidating to me. And I'm not a shy person.
You're in front of a camera right now.
But I don't think of myself as a particularly entertaining or funny person.
I think you are.
Thank you, Sean. But I realized also the subject of my channel doesn't always have to be about me. What I really want to do with my channel eventually is to show people Israel. Like, my ultimate goal is...
Hi, next Thursday, you want to come?
Maybe, yeah.
Done, deal.
As long as I'm not working, yeah, let's do it.
Done.
So like I want to do vlogs where I show, you know, all the different, you know, beautiful nature around Jerusalem and different hikes you can do and different trips you can go on, and, you know, the best way to go around the Shuk, or, you know, tour the old city, and, you know, people who can't be in Israel now can, you know, still, you know, experience it through me or through whoever it is. Talk about really important political things. I really want to bring guests onto my show as well, kind of like Sean does here. And yeah, it takes time because I'm still learning the editing, and I really am a bit, as Sean said, of a perfectionist, so I want everything to be as nice as it can be.
Hand it in to me and I'll say it's not perfect.
Yeah. But also, like, it does get hard because as your editing gets better, you kind of want to delete everything you did previously. No. Like, now it's better, but I'm really trying to keep the bad videos, so-called bad videos on my channel, so that you can see the growth and you can see that I'm improving.
I'm the same way with my podcast.
But, that's what I want to do, and I know that it will take a long time to be able to one day merge it, you know, with a business, but getting my name out there and telling people who I am, that's the first step.
Like, just reflecting a little bit of how you said I have a YouTube addiction, but I use YouTube to create. I think that social media and YouTube and Vimeo and Facebook, Instagram are a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, my father-in-law built a house from scratch using YouTube. He has his house, he had his whole like gigantic basement, he turned it into an apartment. Tiles, plumbing, electricity from YouTube.
It's crazy.
You can learn how to change a spare tire, fix your bike, build a car, build a house, make a gym, how to train, how to make a podcast intro, how to make an ice bath from YouTube. That's a blessing. And you can take that same content, you could create yourself. You could teach anything, anywhere. Like I made an online program using Vimeo, Train Heroic, and YouTube. Simple. It's not so complicated. You just look it up. And it's also a very dark place. Yeah, for me as well. Just the computer is a dark place. You can get sucked into it, and I think as humans we have to have like a good light. We have to have a good balance with our relationship. Because of that, I've taken several times. I had to take a week off Instagram, even though it's my lifeline to my business. I'm out. It's taking over my life right now.
I think that's really good. And that's kind of like Shabbat.
Yeah.
Even though I like don't necessarily observe in like the typical way. Yeah. I don't go on my phone.
Same.
Because it's, you know, it's that one day to like take a break, and I really believe in it.
Yeah, I also like I'm not strictly observant, although I do keep many things. My phone is off on Shabbat. Like if I get sucked in there, what's to stop me from working? Oh, let me answer my client real quick. Let me quickly answer that comment on Instagram.
Yeah, it doesn't
zone out. Quick zone out. I think that's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It was
and
really fun.
That's all for today. And I'm looking forward to future collaborations. Maybe I can pop onto your channel.
Maybe,
and we'll go hiking. And yeah, that's it, bro.
Gosh.